Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is, well, it's focused, demanding, and honestly, pretty compelling. We're really trying to move past, the usual stuff, the blurry photos, the maybe it was swamp gas explanations.
Right.
Today, we're doing a proper deep dive into the most credible, the most professionally documented UFO and UAP encounters out there.
Exactly. For you, our listener, we're basically cutting through all that noise. We're going straight to the sources that really hold up under scrutiny.
Okay.
We're talking reports filed by, highly trained people, commercial pilots, military officers, police deputies, and documented government investigation.
Right, the stuff that's hard to just wave away.
These are the archives that have the data instrument readings, multiple witnesses, sometimes in controlled settings.
Yeah.
And sometimes, quite chillingly, actual physical evidence.
Yeah.
Trace effects.
That focus on, almost court-worthy evidence is key here. What specific criteria did you use? I mean, there's decades of reports. How did you filter it down to just the ones that resist dismissal?
Yeah, good question. We really needed convergence. That was the main thing. Incidents where the anomaly wasn't just seen, but it was recorded across different systems.
It's like radar seeing what the pilot sees.
Exactly. Radar confirmation that lines up perfectly with the visual, or, Geiger counter readings confirming radiation. Or in some darker cases, physical injuries documented in hospital records.
Wow.
When you get that kind of overlap, the pilot confirming the radar confirming the physics are, impossible. It just changes the whole conversation, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. That level of evidence, multiple independent sources, all pointing the same way. That's what we're after. Okay, let's lay out the mission for today. We've broken this down into 4 main areas, sort of building the case. First up, we've got the pilot's dilemma. Aviation and military encounters. These are the ones where professional systems, expensive tech, failed right when they needed it most.
Then we shift gears a bit. We look at evidence that, that burns. Physical and biological impact cases. These are incidents where the objects actually left measurable damage on people, on vehicles, even the environment.
So taking it out of just eyewitness accounts and into something tangible.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Puts it firmly in the physical world. After that, we look at the sheer scale. We call it waves of wonder, global mass sightings. These just completely undermine the idea that it's always just one confused person.
Yeah, when thousands of people see the exact same strange thing.
It becomes a data set, right? You can't just dismiss it. And finally, we go into the deep end. Literally, USOs, unidentified submerged objects.
Underwater encounters.
Yeah, secrets hidden under oceans and lakes. Suggesting capabilities that, frankly, defy both air and sea physics as we know them. It's a huge landscape, often pretty unsettling. So let's dive in, starting with the professionals watching our skies.
Okay, so we start in controlled airspace. This is where safety, identification, it's all paramount. So when trained pilots, people operating, billion-dollar military jets, report seeing things they can't explain, things doing impossible maneuvers. It's more than just a story. It feels like a system failure.
It really does. And the physics involved in some of these reports, they just push the boundaries of everything we think we know about propulsion and aerodynamics.
Absolutely. So where do we begin? What's a case that really exemplifies this failure, this maybe intelligent interaction?
I think the Tehran dogfight back in September 1976 is a perfect starting point. It encapsulates so much. Multiple professional witnesses, high-tech military hardware failing, and this hint of intelligent electromagnetic targeting.
Tehran, 1976. This involved Iranian F-4 Phantom jets, right? Back when Iran was a close U.S. military ally.
That's right. 2 F-4 Phantoms. It started with calls from civilians, frantic calls about a huge, bright object just hovering silently over the city, changing colors red, green, orange, blue.
Okay, so public sightings first. Then the military gets involved.
Yep. The Iranian Air Force scrambled the first F-4. It went up to intercept, and almost immediately its instruments just went dead. Like total failure. Total communications and instrumentation failure. Couldn't talk to the ground, couldn't get a radar lock. The pilot had no choice but to abort, turn back.
Wow. Okay, so that's one failure, but you said 2 jets.
Right, that was just the start. The second F-4, piloted by a Major Parviz Jafari, went up. He got a visual confirmation, saw the object. His radar operator locked onto it. Described it as big, maybe comparable to a Boeing 707 airliner.
So a significant size.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Jafari closed in, got within about 25 nautical miles.
Yeah.
And this is the absolutely critical moment. A smaller, really bright object detached from the main wing.
Detached.
Yeah, broke off.
Yeah.
And darted straight towards Jafari's F-4.
Okay, that's aggressive. What did Jafari do?
He reacted as trained, He went for his weapons system, reached for the missile launch button, standard intercept procedure, and at that exact moment, his weapons control panel went completely dead. His radio cut out. Even his cockpit lights blinked off. Total simultaneous failure.
Whoa, just like the first jet, but even more targeted, it sounds like.
Exactly. It wasn't random. It seemed directly linked to his attempt to engage. The only thing that brought his systems back online was when he took radical evasive action. He banked the jet hard, broke off the intercept, and headed away.
And the moment he disengaged,
the small object stopped its approach, turned, rejoined the larger object, and Jafari's systems instantly came back to life. Panel lit up, radio worked, everything normal again.
That timing. The simultaneous failure and restoration tied to his actions. It screams intelligent interference, not just some random glitch. What did the U.S. make of this? Iran was an ally using U.S. tech.
Well, the Pentagon, or rather the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, they took it very seriously. There's a declassified DIA report from October 76, just a month later.
What did it say?
It called it, and this is a direct quote, a classic case which meets all the criteria necessary for a valid study of the UFO phenomenon.
A classic case. So they acknowledged its significance.
Absolutely. They pointed to the high credibility of the witnesses. Remember, there was an Iranian general involved as a ground witness too, and the, quote, extraordinary flight characteristics. They explicitly stated they couldn't find any conventional explanation for two separate jets losing their systems in the same way when targeting the same object.
So not just equipment malfunction, systemic failure linked to the object. That's huge.
It's a massive piece of data suggesting a technology capable of precise electromagnetic countermeasures.
Okay, that's military engagement. Let's shift to the commercial side. JAL Flight 1628 over Alaska, 1986. This involved a veteran captain, right? Responsible for passengers.
Yes, Captain Kenju Taruchi. Over 10,000 flight hours, very experienced. He was flying a 747 freighter, actually, but the responsibility is the same. And it wasn't just him, his entire flight crew saw it. Co-pilot, flight engineer.
What did they see initially?
It started with two strange lights. Pale, maybe squarish or angular, glowing kind of amber. They were keeping pace with the 747, but moving in these incredibly erratic, jerky ways. Zipping around.
Not like normal aircraft.
Not at all. Taruchi said they pulsed, sometimes seemed to change shape slightly. He first thought maybe U.S. military stealth fighters, but their movements just didn't make sense for any known aircraft. They were defying inertia.
And then things escalated. It wasn't just small lights for long.
No. Suddenly, these two objects surged forward, right towards the cockpit. They emitted this blinding burst of light, so intense it lit up the cabin, and they felt warmth on their faces. Instruments flickered, then poof! The lights
Vanished.
for a moment. And then behind them, this massive dark shape appeared on their radar, and visually, this is what Taruchi famously called the mothership.
How big are we talking?
His description was staggering, shaped like a, quote, flattened walnut. But the scale, he said it was the size of two aircraft carriers stacked together.
Two aircraft carriers. I mean, he's flying one of the biggest planes in the world, a 747.
And this thing absolutely dwarfed it. Imagine looking out your cockpit window and seeing something that makes your jumbo jet look tiny.
That's terrifying. But a claim that big needs serious backup. Did anyone else see it? Crucially, did radar confirm it?
Yes, and that's vital. Both the FAA Air Route Traffic Control Center in Anchorage and military radar at Elmendorf Air Force Base picked up something.
What did they pick up specifically?
Okay, so radar shows two kinds of returns, right? Transponder returns, where a plane identifies itself, and primary returns, which are just reflections off a physical object. They picked up a solid, non-transponder primary target following the JAL 747.
A physical object, unidentified, tracking the plane.
For over 30 minutes. Taruchi tried changing course, changing altitude, but this huge radar target just stayed with him, mimicking his maneuvers. The FAA later confirmed both civilian and military radar saw anomalous signals matching the crew's timeline.
But what was the official explanation? They didn't just say UFO, did they?
No, the official line ended up being rather vague. Something like unusual radar clutter or a split radar return, maybe weather-related. But that doesn't square with three experienced crew members seeing a structured craft the size of two carriers.
Doesn't sound like weather. What happened to Captain Taruchi after reporting this? He stuck to his story, right?
He did. He refused to back down, and his crew supported his account. The professional cost was severe. JAL, likely under pressure, eventually grounded him, reassigned him to a desk job.
Just for reporting what he and his crew saw corroborated by radar.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
They cited concerns over his judgment, but it felt punitive. It sent a very clear message throughout the aviation industry. Report something like this, and your career could be on the line, even if the data backs you up.
That chilling effect on reporting is a recurring theme, isn't it? Okay, let's head south. Bariloche, Argentina, 1995. Another aviation incident, but this one connects the air sighting to a ground failure.
Yes, this one's particularly eerie because of the timing, the synchronization. Aerolíneas Argentinas Flight 674 was on final approach into Bariloche Airport.
And right then, the airport power goes out.
Completely. A total blackout.
Yeah.
And not just the main power grid, the airport's backup generators also failed to kick in immediately.
That's highly improbable. Backup systems are designed specifically for main power failure.
Exactly. A double failure like that is incredibly rare. And just as the airport went dark, the pilot, Captain Jorge Polanco, noticed his own cockpit lights flicker momentarily.
And then he saw something.
Right then, a bright blue, pulsing sphere appeared off the plane's left side. It was moving parallel to the Boeing 727 as it descended.
Keeping pace with the plane.
Perfectly. Polanco radioed the tower, or tried to amidst the chaos, saying, "We are being shadowed by an unknown object." Witnesses on the ground also saw it. The sphere moved silently alongside the plane, matching its speed and descent angle precisely.
Did it interact further?
In a way that suggested intelligence. As the plane got closer to the runway threshold, the sphere just stopped, abruptly halted in midair, letting the 727 pass in front of it. Then, moments later, it apparently resumed movement.
Like it knew the plane needed to land. Was there radar confirmation here too?
Yes, the Argentine Air Force later confirmed radar contact matching the timing and general location described by the flight crew and ground witnesses. And ground personnel reported their control panel lights dimmed just before the main blackout, suggesting some kind of electromagnetic drain associated with the object's arrival.
The coordinated power failure, the shadowing, the intelligent halt, it builds a strong case.
Let's look at one more air incident, perhaps the most unsettling because we have the pilot's final moments on tape. Frederick Valentich, Australia, 1978.
Ah, Valentich. Yes, this one is deeply disturbing. It's a 6-minute radio transmission between a young pilot and Melbourne flight service that just gets progressively stranger and ends abruptly.
He was flying solo over the Bass Strait. Correct. 20-year-old Frederick Valentich in a Cessna 182. He contacts Melbourne, initially reporting an unidentified aircraft near him. He asks if there's any known traffic. Tower says no.
And his description got more specific.
Much more. He described it as having 4 bright lights, then as being long or elongated. Then he says it's approaching him rapidly. It passed over him. He described it as having a green light and being metallic, reflecting the sunlight.
And crucially, he kept insisting it wasn't a normal aircraft.
Yes. At one point he says, "It seems to be hovering." And then the key phrase, "It's hovering and it's not an aircraft." He sounds stressed, but also focused, trying to describe what he's seeing.
Now, skeptics point out he had an interest in UFOs. Does that invalidate his report?
It's something to consider contextually, but the way he communicates for those 6 minutes, it's largely technical. He's reporting position, altitude, description of the object, its movements relative to him. He's trying to work in the problem and figure out what it is. It doesn't sound like someone making up a story or panicking wildly, not until the very end, maybe. And the end. What were his last words?
He reported the object was orbiting on top of me. He mentioned engine trouble, rough idling. Then he said, Melbourne, that strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. It is hovering, and it's not an aircraft. Followed by 17 seconds of open microphone, capturing a strange metallic scraping or clicking sound.
And then
silence.
There's just
silence. Radio contact lost.
And the search?
Extensive search and rescue found absolutely nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no trace of the Cessna or Valentich.
What did the official investigation conclude? The Australian Department of Transport report was inconclusive. They couldn't determine the cause. Crucially, they stated they could not rule out the possibility that the aircraft was subjected to some form of intervention by the object reported by Valentich, and that the object's presence couldn't be disproven. It remains a complete mystery, captured in real time, ending in silence. Looking back at all these cases, Tehran, JL 1628, Bariloche, Valentich, you see these patterns, don't you? The electromagnetic interference, the impossible flight dynamics confirmed by radar or multiple witnesses, and this sense of intelligent, interactive behavior. These aren't just lights in the sky. They're phenomena interacting with our most advanced technologies and trained observers.
Okay, so we've seen the impact on technology and the challenges faced by pilots. Now let's move to cases where the interaction left, well, physical scars. Actual damage to people, vehicles, the environment. This is where the evidence becomes very tangible, very hard to dismiss as purely psychological.
Exactly. These cases bring the phenomenon down to earth, sometimes literally. And we have to start with perhaps the most medically documented and frankly horrifying case of biological harm linked to a UFO. The Cash Landrum incident, Texas, 1980.
This wasn't a pilot encounter, right? This involved civilians on a rural road.
Correct. Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and Vicki's young grandson Colby were driving home late one night near Huffman, Texas. They came across this massive, intensely bright, diamond-shaped object hovering low over the road ahead of them.
Hovering low enough to affect the surroundings.
Oh, yes. It was emitting intense heat. They could feel it inside the car, making the metal hot to the touch. Betty Cash actually got out of the car, drawn towards it, perhaps thinking someone was in trouble. She described flames periodically shooting down from the bottom of the object. The heat was so intense it was reportedly softening the asphalt on the road.
So incredible heat and light. But then something else happened that makes this case unique.
Utterly unique. As the diamond-shaped object began to slowly ascend and move away, it was suddenly surrounded, or maybe joined, by a large formation of helicopters.
Military helicopter.
Unmistakably. Witnesses described at least 23, many identified as the large tandem-rotor CH-47 Chinooks used by the U.S. Army. Some reports mentioned other, possibly unmarked, helicopter types as well. This large contingent seemed to be escorting the object away from the area.
Escorting a UFO, that's a huge claim. What happened to the witnesses afterwards? Betty Cash got out of the car?
The aftermath was devastating, particularly for Betty Cash, who was exposed more directly. Both she and Vicki Landrum developed severe immediate symptoms. We're talking nausea, vomiting, extreme fatigue, and then intense skin blistering, like severe sunburn, followed by large clumps of hair falling out. Their eyes became painfully sensitive to light.
That sounds like radiation sickness.
The symptoms were clinically almost identical to severe radiation poisoning, specifically beta and gamma radiation exposure. Hospital records documented these injuries extensively. The lesions, the hair loss, the persistent health problems that plagued Betty Cash for the rest of her life. Aerospace engineer John Schuessler, who investigated the case, concluded the medical evidence strongly pointed to exposure to both significant ionizing radiation and intense infrared radiation.
So, documented medical harm consistent with radiation and a formation of military helicopters escorting the source object. Did they sue?
They did. They filed a $20 million lawsuit against the U.S. government, arguing that the object was a secret government craft and that the government was negligent in exposing them to harmful effects.
And the outcome, given the helicopter evidence.
The lawsuit failed. Why? Because the government invoked sovereign immunity and, crucially, formally denied that any U.S. military aircraft, helicopters included, were in that specific area on that night.
Despite multiple witnesses seeing a large formation of Chinooks.
Despite that, without proof, the government operated the craft or the helicopter's proof, the government itself denied the case couldn't proceed. The medical evidence remains undisputed, but the official denial created an insurmountable legal barrier, a classic cover-up pattern.
Unbelievable. Okay, let's look at another case involving physical damage, this time to a vehicle and law enforcement. Deputy Val Johnson, Minnesota, 1979.
Right, this one's fascinating for the specific, measurable physical traces left behind. Deputy Sheriff Val Johnson was on patrol on a quiet rural highway late at night. He saw bright light ahead. Initially, he thought it was maybe a small plane landing illegally.
But it wasn't plane.
No. As he got closer, the light suddenly accelerated directly towards his patrol car at an incredible speed. He reported hearing glass break and blacking out briefly. He woke up sometime later, his car sideways in the road.
And the damage to the car was unusual.
Extremely unusual. The windshield was smashed, but inward, in a strange, almost circular pattern. Not like hitting something, more like a pressure implosion. One headlight was smashed, the other untouched. And the car's main radio antenna, a thick, durable metal rod, was bent sharply backward at its base, almost at a 90-degree angle.
Bent, not snapped.
Bent cleanly, requiring immense localized force. But here's the clincher, the really specific evidence. The clock on the car's dashboard and Deputy Johnson's own personal wristwatch had both stopped.
Stopped at the same time?
Precisely the same time. 1:48 a.m., according to his watch. Though some reports cite 2:19 a.m. for the car clock, the key is they stopped simultaneously. This points strongly towards a powerful electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, associated with the light, something that could fry circuits and stop mechanical or quartz clocks instantly.
Did anyone try to explain this damage conventionally?
Ford Motor Company engineers examined the patrol car. They were baffled. They couldn't replicate the windshield damage or the clean antenna bend through any conventional impact. And Deputy Johnson himself suffered temporary eye irritation like welder's flash burn, suggesting exposure to intense light.
So physical damage to the car, biological effect on the deputy, and that crucial EMP signature stopping the clocks. Another pattern, let's go back further. Brazil, 1957, Fort Itaipu. Military witnesses again.
Yes, this is an important early case because it involves military personnel being directly harmed and military medical confirmation. 2 Brazilian soldiers were on sentry duty at Fort Itaipu near Santos.
What did they experience?
They reported seeing a bright, intensely glowing, oval-shaped object descend rapidly from the sky towards the fort. It hovered silently and then emitted an intense, silent flash accompanied by a wave of unbearable heat.
A flash and heat similar to Cash Landrum. What were their injuries?
Both soldiers suffered significant burns. Military medical reports documented 2nd and 3rd degree burns on their bodies, consistent with, again, either intense thermal energy or radiation exposure, not like typical fire burns.
Confirmed by military doctors, so this should have been a major incident.
You'd think so, but the response was immediate suppression. The military sealed the fort, access was restricted, the official story was quickly changed. It became a training accident involving malfunctioning electrical equipment or flares.
Despite the soldiers' testimony about the aerial object.
Despite that, however, internal military documents surfaced much later apparently confirmed the investigation found the burns were caused by an aerial phenomenon of unknown origin. So the internal reality acknowledged the truth, while the public face was complete denial. Another instance of physical harm followed by institutional cover-up.
It's a disturbing pattern. Finally, in this section, we have perhaps the most famous case involving physical evidence and military witnesses. Rendlesham Forest, UK, 1980.
Rendlesham, often called Britain's Roswell. It happened over 3 consecutive nights in December 1980, right next to twin U.S. Air Force bases, RAF Woodridge and RAF Bentwaters. And crucially, these bases were known to store nuclear weapons at the time.
So a UFO incident near a nuclear weapons storage area, that raises the stakes considerably.
Immensely. It involved numerous USAF security personnel. On the first night, patrolmen saw strange lights descending into the forest just outside the base perimeter. They went to investigate, thinking maybe a plane had crashed.
What did they find?
They found a small, triangular craft, metallic in appearance, glowing, either landed or hovering just above the ground. It had blue and red lights. As they approached, it maneuvered silently through the trees and then took off at incredible speed.
Okay, that's night 1, but it continued.
Yes. The next day, investigators found physical evidence at the site. 3 distinct indentations in the ground, arranged in a triangular pattern suggesting landing gear. Branches on nearby trees were broken or singed, and critically, they took radiation readings.
Radiation, what did they find?
Using Geiger counters, they detected radiation levels at the landing site, particularly in the 3 depressions, that were significantly higher than the normal background radiation in the surrounding forest, up to 7 or 8 times background in some spots, according to reports.
Tangible, measurable radiation left behind, that connects directly back to Cash Landrum and Fort Itaipu.
Exactly. It suggests a potential energy signature or byproduct of the object's propulsion or presence. Then, on the 3rd night, the phenomenon returned, and this time, the deputy base commander himself, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, led a patrol into the forest.
And he recorded it.
Yes, Halt carried a micro cassette recorder, and we have his real-time commentary. It's riveting audio. He describes seeing pulsing lights, objects moving rapidly, stopping, starting, changing direction silently.
What did he describe the lights doing?
He describes one object hovering, dripping what looked like molten metal, though nothing was found later. And most disturbingly, he describes beams of light being directed down from the object, specifically towards the ground, including in the direction of the highly sensitive weapons storage area, the WSA, where the nukes were kept.
Impulse directed at a nuclear weapons bunker.
That's what Holt reported on the tape. He sounds baffled, professional, trying to make sense of it. The lights moved erratically, split into multiple objects, and eventually shot off at impossible speeds.
So we have high-ranking military witnesses, physical ground traces, confirmed radiation readings, and real-time audio recording of intelligent maneuvers near a nuclear site. What was the official explanation?
The initial U.S. Air Force memo acknowledged investigating unexplained lights. However, the British Ministry of Defense, MOD, quickly concluded the events had no defense significance. A classic bureaucratic dismissal despite the wealth of evidence collected by USAF personnel on British soil.
No defense significance. Lights beaming near a nuclear storage area. That seems inadequate.
Deeply inadequate. It fits the pattern perfectly. Extraordinary event, professional witnesses, physical evidence, instrumental readings, followed by official minimization and dismissal. But the data points remain: objects that defy physics, interact with military systems, and leave measurable physical and biological traces. That's not anecdote. It's hard evidence demanding explanation. Okay, let's broaden the lens now. Individual cases are compelling, especially with physical evidence. But when you get hundreds, even thousands of unrelated people reporting the exact same unusual object over a wide area at an extended time, well, that challenges the lone confused witness idea completely.
Right, the sheer volume becomes evidence itself. Mass sightings suggest something undeniably real is happening, something that can't just be written off as individual error or hoax. Where do we start with these waves?
The Belgian Triangle Wave is arguably the most dramatic and well-documented example in modern history. This wasn't just a few sightings. It was a phenomenon that gripped the country from roughly November 1989 through the spring of 1990.
Belgium, 1989-90. What were people seeing?
Overwhelmingly consistent reports. More than 2,000 official reports were filed, plus countless informal ones. People from all walks of life, across many different regions, described seeing a massive black triangular-shaped craft.
Triangular?
Yes, a distinct large, dark triangle, often with bright lights at the corners and sometimes a larger red or orange light in the center. Critically, it was almost always reported as flying very low and being completely silent.
Silent and low flying. That rules out conventional large aircraft immediately. What about the scale of this thing?
Estimates varied, but generally described as very large, bigger than conventional jets. And its ability to fly slowly, hover silently, and then sometimes accelerate rapidly without a sound was key.
Did the Belgian military get involved? With thousands of reports, they must have.
They did. The Belgian Air Force took it very seriously. On the night of March 30th, 1990, ground radar picked up targets displaying these impossible flight characteristics. They scrambled 2 F-16 fighter jets to intercept.
F-16's intercepting a UFO. What happened?
The pilots visually confirmed seeing strange lights, but the radar data is the crucial part. The F-16s locked onto the target multiple times. The radar tapes, which were later analyzed, show the object making maneuvers that are simply impossible for any known aircraft.
Impossible?
We're talking about descending from 10,000 feet to just 1,000 feet in less than 5 seconds. The G-forces involved would crush a human pilot and likely tear apart a conventional airframe.
And the sound. An aircraft doing that should break the sound barrier, right?
Absolutely. There should have been a massive sonic boom echoing across the countryside. But witnesses consistently reported silence. The radar also showed the object making instantaneous changes in speed and direction, sometimes dropping off radar only to reappear miles away seconds later, far faster than an F-16 could travel.
So confirmed by sophisticated military radar to be defying physics. What was the official Belgian stance on this? Did they try to cover it up?
This is where Belgium is unique. Facing overwhelming public reports and their own baffling radar data, the Belgian military, particularly Air Force Major General Wilfried de Brouwer, who was chief of operations, took an unusually transparent approach.
Transparent how?
De Brouwer held press conferences. He acknowledged the sightings were real, that the radar data was inexplicable, and that they had tracked objects with capabilities beyond any known technology belonging to Belgium or any other nation. They even cooperated with civilian UFO research groups, like OVEPs, sharing radar data for analysis.
That's remarkable. A military admitting they tracked something they couldn't explain or identify.
It really is. While they never identified the object, their honesty, driven by the sheer weight of evidence, stands in stark contrast to the denials seen elsewhere.
Okay, let's cross the Atlantic. The Hudson Valley Wave, New York State, 1982 to 1986. Another long-term mass sighting event.
Yes, thousands of witnesses over about 4 years, concentrated in the Hudson River Valley area, Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess counties. And again, remarkable consistency in the descriptions.
What was the object described as here?
Most commonly, a massive V-shaped or boomerang-shaped craft, often described as being absolutely huge, the size of a football field, or even larger. And like the Belgian triangles, it moved very slowly, often hovered, and was almost completely silent.
The size of a football field, silent. Who is seeing this? Just average folks.
All sorts of people. But significantly, reports came from police officers on patrol, scientists, engineers, even a retired commercial airline pilot who stated unequivocally that it was a structured craft unlike anything he'd ever seen or flown. It was frequently seen hovering silently over places like the Taconic State Parkway or the Indian Point nuclear power plant.
Indian Point, another nuclear connection. Was there a common skeptical explanation floated for this one?
Yes, the most persistent counterargument was that people were misidentifying a formation of small private planes, specifically ultralight aircraft, flying in a V shape, maybe as a prank.
Ultralights. How well did that explanation hold up?
It really didn't for several reasons. First, ultralights are noisy. They use small engines that sound like lawnmowers. Witnesses insisted on silence. Second, the size. People were describing a single enormous solid object, not a group of small flimsy planes. Third, the hovering. Ultralights can't just hang motionless in the air for extended periods, especially in windy conditions.
So the ultralight theory just didn't fit the detailed witness accounts from credible observers.
Not the consistent accounts, no. The sheer scale, the silence, the slow hovering flight, observed repeatedly by thousands over years. It defied that simple explanation.
Let's go down under Australia again. Westall High School, 1966. This one is different, a daylight sighting, witnessed by many young people.
Yes, Westall is significant because it happened in broad daylight, around 11:00 a.m., and involved a large group, over 200 students and several teachers, at what was then Westall High School, now Westall Secondary College, in suburban Melbourne.
What did they all see?
A silver or gray, metallic, disc-shaped or saucer-shaped object. It was seen hovering silently just above the tree line near the school's sports field. Some described it descending into a nearby paddock or field known as the Grange. After a short time, it ascended rapidly and disappeared at high speed.
200 witnesses in daylight. Did they find anything where it supposedly landed?
Reports mentioned that some students who ran over to the field found a large circular area where the grass was flattened, swirled, and possibly yellowed or dehydrated, suggesting maybe heat or some energy effect.
Okay, a daylight mass sighting with possible ground traces. But the really memorable part of Westall seems to be what happened after the sighting.
Absolutely. The aftermath is notorious for the alleged immediate and intense suppression. Witnesses consistently report that the school headmaster warned everyone, students and staff, not to talk about what they saw.
Just the headmaster?
No, it goes further. Many witnesses also described the swift arrival of unidentified men, sometimes in dark suits, sometimes described as military personnel, possibly RAAF. These men allegedly interviewed witnesses, confiscated photos or drawings students had made, and strongly warned them against speaking to the media or anyone else.
Men in black types, essentially.
That's the archetype, yes.
Yeah.
There are also reports that news crews, including one from Channel 9 television, arrived to film, but the footage later vanished or was confiscated. The level of immediate, coordinated silencing reported by so many unrelated witnesses is extraordinary.
So despite hundreds seeing it, the official narrative became what? Weather balloon.
That was one explanation floated later. Yes,
yeah.
Experimental military aircraft was another.
Yeah.
But the witnesses, even decades later in documentaries and reunions, remain adamant. It was a silent, metallic disc. Not a balloon, not a conventional plane. The suppression itself almost lends more credibility to the strangeness of the event.
It does suggest someone wanted it covered up quickly. Okay, final mass sighting case. The Portage County Police Chase, Ohio and Pennsylvania, 1966. Not a static sighting, but a pursuit.
Right. This one involves law enforcement actively chasing an object for a significant distance.
Yeah.
It started in Portage County, Ohio. Deputy Sheriff Dale Spar and his partner, Wilbur Neff, were investigating an abandoned car when they saw a huge, brightly lit object rise up from behind some trees.
How big? What did it look like?
Spar described it as looking like an ice cream cone lying on its side. Pulsating, metallic underneath, maybe 50, 100 feet in diameter, and incredibly bright. It rose to about 1,000 feet and started moving.
So they pursued it?
They did. They followed it, and it seemed to pace them. As they drove east toward Pennsylvania, they radioed for assistance. Police officers from other jurisdictions joined the chase. At one point, Officer Wayne Houston from East Palestine, Ohio, also got a clear view and joined the pursuit into Pennsylvania.
How far did this chase go?
Altogether, about 85 miles, lasting nearly 90 minutes, crossing state lines. Multiple police officers from different departments were involved at various stages.
And how did the object behave during this long chase?
Witnesses described it as playing games almost. It would speed up when they accelerated, slow down, or hover when they stopped. It maintained a relatively low altitude. Spar felt like it was deliberately toying with them, demonstrating complete control. It eventually climbed rapidly and disappeared.
An 85-mile chase involving multiple police officers across 2 states. What was the official explanation from Project Blue Book, the Air Force's UFO investigation unit at the time?
This is one of the most infamous Blue Book dismissals. After a very brief investigation, they concluded that the officers had initially mistaken the planet Venus, or possibly a satellite low on the horizon, got confused, and then chased it under conditions of temperature inversion, causing visual distortions.
Venus. They chased Venus for 85 miles across state lines.
That was the official finding. Deputy Spar, who was the primary witness throughout the chase, publicly ridiculed this explanation. He called it laughable and insulting. He knew what Venus looked like, where it was in the sky. This was a large, structured object at low altitude, interacting with their pursuit. One of the other officers involved was reportedly a trained meteorologist who also knew it wasn't Venus.
So a complete dismissal despite multiple professional law enforcement witnesses. What was the impact on Deputy Spar?
It was devastating. He faced intense public ridicule, skepticism from superiors, and the stress reportedly contributed significantly to the breakdown of his marriage, his health, and eventually led to him leaving law enforcement. He felt betrayed and discredited for simply reporting what he and others experienced during that long, strange night. He never changed his story, though.
Another case of a credible witness being punished for the report. These mass sightings, Belgium, Hudson Valley, Westall, Portage County, they really hammer home the point that these aren't isolated incidents. They're widespread, consistent, and often met with denial that just doesn't fit the evidence. All right, we've covered air encounters, physical impacts, and mass sightings. Now we dive into perhaps the most mysterious category, USOs, unidentified submerged objects. Cases involving bodies of water suggest these phenomena might have capabilities that go way beyond just flying in our atmosphere.
Exactly. If an object can seamlessly transition between air and water, or operate deep underwater at impossible speeds, it implies a technology that fundamentally overcomes the challenges of buoyancy, pressure, and drag in ways we can't comprehend.
Where do we start with these underwater mysteries? Siberia seems like a remote and deep place to begin. Lake Baikal, 1980s.
Lake Baikal is perfect. It's the world's oldest and deepest freshwater lake, holding about 20% of the world's unfrozen freshwater. It's vast, deep over a mile deep in places, and has a long history of strange phenomena and military activity.
And this case involves Soviet Navy divers.
Yes. According to accounts that emerged after the fall of the Soviet Union, primarily from researchers interviewing former military personnel, a team of Soviet Navy divers were conducting a training exercise in Lake Baikal. This was likely around 1982.
What did they encounter down there?
At a depth of about 50 meters, or roughly 160 feet, they reportedly came across a group of humanoid figures.
Humanoid figures underwater.
That's the report. Described as about 3 meters tall, so over 9 feet tall, wearing smooth, tight-fitting silvery suits or coverings. And crucially, they appear to be wearing no scuba gear, no rebreathers, no helmets, despite the depth and the near-freezing water temperature. They were just there, moving in a coordinated way.
9-foot-tall figures in silver suits, 160 feet down with no gear. What did the divers do?
Their commander, presumably watching via sonar or cameras from the surface support vessel, ordered the divers to try and capture one of these beings, possibly using a net or some kind of capture device.
Capture them. What happened when they tried?
As the divers moved to engage, something happened instantaneously. An unknown, powerful force, described sometimes as a concussive wave or a sudden change in pressure, erupted from the vicinity of the figures.
And the result for the divers?
Tragic. 3 of the divers were reportedly killed almost instantly, and the remaining 4 were severely injured and propelled rapidly towards the surface by this force.
What kind of injuries?
The official cause of death and injury was listed as severe barotrauma, essentially, the bends, caused by surfacing too rapidly without decompression. But the implication was that this rapid, uncontrolled ascent was caused by the force emanating from the encounter. It suggests a defensive reaction, a powerful, non-lethal for most, energy projection.
That's incredibly disturbing. Is there any connection to USO activity tracked in the lake?
Yes, later reports and analyses, including some attributed to declassified Soviet documents or accounts, mentioned that Soviet military sonar had indeed tracked extremely fast-moving objects deep within Lake Baikal prior to and after this incident.
How fast?
Speeds up to, and maybe even exceeding, 250 kilometers per hour. That's about 155 miles per hour. Underwater.
155 miles per hour underwater. Is that even possible?
With known technology. Absolutely not. The fastest nuclear submarines might hit 35, 40 knots, maybe 70, 80 kilometers, and even that creates immense noise and turbulence. To move at 250 kilometers underwater silently, as these objects were reportedly tracked, would require overcoming drag and cavitation in a way that suggests some form of advanced physics manipulation, maybe generating a supercavitating bubble around the craft or using localized energy fields. It's pure sci-fi by our standards.
So a deadly encounter with humanoid figures linked to instrumentally tracked objects moving at impossible underwater speeds. Let's move to Brazil again. The Colares Island incidents, 1977. This wasn't just a sighting, it was described as attacks.
Yes, the Colares situation was unprecedented. For several months in 1977, the fishing communities on Colares Island, in the Pará region of Brazil, were terrorized by nocturnal aerial phenomena. These weren't just passive lights, they were perceived as actively hostile.
Hostile how? What were they doing?
Locals reported seeing various types of lights and small structured objects, sometimes cylindrical or disc-shaped. These objects would approach people, often fishermen or villagers walking at night, and shine intense beams of light on them.
Beams that caused harm.
Yes. Victims reported experiencing a range of debilitating effects. Intense burning sensations, puncture marks on their skin, often in patterns, localized paralysis, dizziness, weakness, and symptoms resembling radiation sickness or severe anemia. Some felt like something was being drained from them.
Drained? That's where the local name came from.
Exactly. They called the phenomenon chupa-chupa, which translates roughly to suck-suck, reflecting that terrifying sensation of having energy or even blood drawn out by these beams. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of people were affected. Local medical professionals documented the injuries, noting burns, puncture wounds, and strange blood count anomalies.
This sounds like mass hysteria, except for the documented injuries. Did the authorities respond?
The panic and injuries became so widespread that the Brazilian Air Force had to intervene. They launched a formal military investigation called Operação Prato, or Operation Saucer.
Operation Saucer. What did they do? What did they find?
They deployed a task force of military personnel equipped with cameras, video recorders, and other sensors to Colares Island for several months in late 1977. They collected an enormous amount of data.
What kind of data?
Hundreds of photographs, hours of film footage, and detailed reports documenting numerous sightings of unidentified aerial objects displaying highly unconventional flight characteristics. They logged objects making sharp turns, hovering silently, accelerating instantly, and sometimes appearing to interact directly with the investigators.
Interact how?
There are famous accounts from Operation Saucer personnel, including the commanding officer, Captain Uranja Holanda, describing how the objects would react to signals. For instance, if they shone a powerful flashlight at an object, it might flash back, change color, change altitude, or move away, indicating it perceived the signal and responded intelligently.
So, military documentation of intelligent interactive craft causing physical harm to civilians. What happened to Operation Saucer? Was the data released?
No, quite the opposite. Despite collecting this wealth of evidence, Operation Saucer was abruptly terminated in late 1977 or early 1978. All the collected materials, photos, films, reports were classified and locked away.
Hey, if they had proof.
That's the enduring mystery. The official reason was inconclusive findings, but that seems unlikely given the volume of data. Captain Holanda, years later after retiring, gave interviews confirming the reality and strangeness of what they documented, suggesting a high-level decision was made to suppress the findings, perhaps because they were too disturbing or inexplicable.
And Captain Hollanda's fate adds another layer of intrigue, doesn't it?
Tragically, yes. Shortly after giving detailed interviews in 1997, revealing specifics about Operation Saucer and the objects they encountered, Captain Hollanda was found dead. The official ruling was suicide, but the timing, coming right after his revelations about a major military UFO investigation and cover-up, has always been viewed with suspicion by researchers.
A potential whistleblower silenced. It adds to the darkness surrounding Colares. Okay, one last USO case, closer to home for North American listeners. Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia, 1967.
Shag Harbor is a classic case, often cited as one of the best documented instances of a potential UFO crash and subsequent underwater activity. It started on the night of October 4th, 1967.
What did witnesses see?
Multiple independent witnesses, including several teenagers and motorists, plus at least one RCMP officer, saw a large object with a series of bright, flashing amber or orange lights flying low over the water near the small fishing village of Shag Harbor.
Flying low or crashing?
It appeared to descend rapidly and impact the water with a loud whistling sound and a flash. Witnesses then saw it floating on the surface for a short time, maybe 5-10 minutes, casting a pale yellowish light on the water. Then it tilted and sank beneath the waves.
So multiple witnesses saw an object crash and sink. The immediate assumption must have been a plane crash.
Exactly. The RCMP, Coast Guard, and local fishing boats rushed to the scene, expecting to find survivors or wreckage. The Royal Canadian Navy also got involved quickly, sending divers and ships to the area.
And what did this intensive search find over the next few days?
Absolutely nothing. No bodies, no aircraft parts, no oil slick, no life vests, no debris whatsoever. Divers searched the seabed in the impact area but found no sign of any wreckage. The only physical evidence was some strange yellow foam on the surface shortly after the object sank, which reportedly dissipated quickly.
No wreckage at all. That's highly unusual for any aircraft crash.
Very unusual. It suggests either the witnesses were mistaken, which seems unlikely given the number inconsistency, or the object that crashed was not a conventional aircraft and was perhaps made of materials that didn't disintegrate on impact or was designed to sink intact.
Did the Canadian government acknowledge anything unusual happened?
Officially, yes, to some extent. Documents later obtained from the Department of National Defense, D&D, confirmed that they investigated an unknown object, which was sighted visually and tracked on radar entering Canadian airspace and crashing near Shag Harbor. They confirmed the negative results of the search for conventional wreckage.
But the story didn't end there, did it? There were rumors, later substantiated, that the object didn't just sink and die.
That's right. This is the USO part. Further research, including interviews with former military personnel, revealed that after the initial public search was called off, Canadian and possibly U.S. Navy assets secretly continued to track an unidentified submerged object for several more days.
Tracked it underwater, moving.
Apparently, yes. Sonar reportedly tracked an object moving slowly along the seabed, heading southwest from Shag Harbor towards a place called Government Point, near Shelburne, Nova Scotia. Coincidentally or not, Shelburne housed a highly sensitive underwater submarine detection base, a SOSUS station, at the time.
So the object survived the crash, was maneuvering underwater, and headed towards a secret Navy base.
That's the implication from the later research. It suggests the military knew it wasn't a crashed plane, knew it was something else, tracked it underwater, possibly interacted with it, and kept the whole subsequent operation completely secret. It transformed Shag Harbor from just a crash site mystery into a confirmed USO event with military tracking.
Wow. So looking back across everything we've discussed today, that the pilot encounters, the physical injuries, the mass sightings, the underwater objects, these consistent threads really start to stand out, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely do. You see this recurring pattern of powerful targeted electromagnetic interference. Radios dying, compasses going haywire, car clocks stopping, weapons systems failing right at the critical moment.
Yeah.
It suggests a technology that can actively influence or disable our own.
And then there's the flight characteristics themselves, the silent movement, especially for large objects, the ability to hover motionless, seemingly unaffected by wind, the impossible acceleration like in the Belgian case, and the lack of sonic booms.
Right. It points to a propulsion system that operates outside conventional aerodynamics and physics as we understand them. No visible engines, no exhaust, no noise, yet capable of incredible speed and maneuverability, both in air and apparently underwater.
And maybe most importantly, the behavior. It doesn't seem random. Shadowing the JAL flight, seemingly toying with the police in Portage County, disabling the F-4 just as it tried to engage, responding to flashlights in Collares, maybe even targeting nuclear sites in Rendlesham. It suggests intelligence, purposeful action.
Whether that intelligence is, some incredibly advanced terrestrial black project kept secret for decades, or something genuinely non-human, the consistency of the documented evidence from trained professionals, pilots, police, military, forces us to take it seriously. This isn't just stories anymore. It's data collected by credible observers, often backed by instruments.
And that really brings us to the core takeaway for you, the listener. The truly unsettling part when you look at all this evidence together isn't just the strangeness of what was seen, the discs, the triangles, the lights.
No, the most profound piece is the evidence itself and the reaction to it. The radiation burns confirmed by doctors, the radar tapes analyzed by military experts, the physical indentations and radiation readings measured on the ground, the audio recording of a deputy base commander describing beams near a nuke site, the medical files from Collares, the negative reg searches after Shag Harbor. This is tangible stuff.
And yet, the official response so often across different countries, different decades, has been systemic refusal. Refusal to offer genuine, evidence-based explanations, even when their own people, their own instruments, provided the data. Dismissal, downplaying, outright denial seems to be the norm.
And that raises the biggest question, the one you should keep asking. Why? Why the secrecy? Why the cover-up? What are the implications for air safety if unknown objects are routinely interacting with commercial and military flights? What does it mean for national defense if objects with superior technology can penetrate airspace, disable weapon systems, and even potentially surveil nuclear facilities with impunity?
And what does it mean for our fundamental understanding of physics if these things are real and operate using principles we don't grasp? The most persistent, nagging takeaway isn't just about the objects themselves.
It's about the response to the evidence. The consistent, high-quality data provided by credible professionals was systematically ignored, buried, or explained away with justifications that often defied logic, like the Venus explanation for the Portage County chase. Why? What were they or are they trying to hide? That's the question that lingers.
The truth might not just be out there, maybe it's locked away in archives, obscured by decades of denial. A very chilling thought indeed. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us into some of the most credible and often disturbing encounters ever documented.